All right, so I'm your after lunch actionable insights guy, and Rob is kidding. He actually had a lot of wisdom in that. I really appreciate it. Where did he go? Hard-earned insights from many years in the trenches. I've also been in the trenches for many years. I can't believe I'm still kind of doing digital. Here in 2018, are we? My company turns 25 this month. We were founded just a block from here, back when the internet was called New Media. And we built websites that had center text and little flashy rainbow kind of text for people like Greenpeace and put a lot of groups on the internet. But my path has been always a search for mission and impact. I don't know why. Maybe you've asked yourself this. Why do I keep working in this kind of quirky sector? I work in like the quirky, an even quirkier part of it, in that basically like major underdogs trying to fight big fossil fuel projects or fight for racial justice or not necessarily sexy things that are easy to win on. And the advocacy side of the nonprofit sector is where I've focused my career in the last at least decade. And why still the internet? I mean, it's just like I built websites for a long time. I made a lot of pages on the internet, and that's still important. I mean, I have some people that say the internet's or websites are dead, and it's all about social, but I still consider them to be the backbone of your content strategy. But for me, the reason why I'm still here, and what I'm going to talk to you about today, is I was always more interested in organizational systems, human systems, people systems, culture, and leadership, and how that underpinned what we were trying to do on the web. And in my own experience, I've been really privileged just from doing it for a long time and being a white male that got in early and made some of the right connections to work with some of the biggest brands in the world and some big billionaires doing social change funding, and I've seen those projects flail out and go nowhere. Billionaire-funded social change project. And then I've seen, scrappy grassroots projects, which is more my personal interest, go on and actually make major systemic change or improve lives for the better. And I was always studying it. Why was that? I was a little bit involved with 350.org when they got off the ground, and at the same time I was working with a giant international charity with 1,800 staff and 80 offices around the world, and the 15 people at 350 were getting more done than this giant charity. So what was it about their model? There's something interesting in there. That's been my curiosity. So one of the things with digital, we're this digital nonprofit, what even is digital? I mean, that's really where you start. I got a chance to interview someone I helped hire 5 years ago. He's the digital director at one of the biggest human rights nonprofits around the world. He's done an amazing job. And he said, what is digital? Digital is everything. Digital is everything how this organization does. It's how it produces content. It's how it gathers research in the field. It's how it does its media outreach. It's how it engages supporters and updates funders and actually makes campaigns happen. So to call myself a digital director is kind of a misnomer. Sure, that's my home, but my work is actually significantly different than just digital, and I think that's a career path for you all. That's what's kept me in this industry, 25 years later. I'm not a technologist. I'm actually interested in the actual pointy edge of the spear of innovation and of change and what's actually working on the ground. So for me, that question, what is digital? If I could summarize it into a few different things. Eli, I told you about my fonts. It's okay. You guys you'll forgive me for my hanging G there later. I don't know, storytelling. I'm about to fly to Washington tonight and work with hard-edged politicians, and storytelling is a harder kind of pitch to make in the world of, political voter mobilization and all this, more kind of hardcore stuff. But really, what I've come to learn in doing campaign innovation work and training around the world is that the story organizations tell, and whether it's emotional or not, whether it's actually tapped into cultural kind of backstories and mythologies, whether we actually are dealing with real problems and real solutions that actually matter to real people's lives, as opposed to the kind of the weird policy world that most of us spend our time in. Whether we're actually telling stories about heroes who aren't us as the NGOs, hopefully we all know that by now. And villains. In my work with advocacy, the world is held in shape by powerful forces. And if we don't talk about those forces, And if we pretend everything's normal in our little bubble, then that actually doesn't really work for a lot of people. They're looking for that kind of truth that cuts through the milk toast. I've understood that brand and story is the most important part of what we're doing here, and a lot of our groups that we work with don't actually have that figured out. Doesn't mean it necessarily has to be your job to do it, but when you see that gap, don't wait to fill it if nobody else is filling it. That's what we can really offer, is through data and through what people engage with is story. Engagement, most groups that are doing anything interesting in the last 10 years, the kind of network nonprofits, as Rob said, are groups like the ACLU in the US that's just invested a major, they call it peoplepower.org, and it's a frontline organizing platform. They've grown 250,000 new engaged members in all 50 states. And it's a huge new source of power for an organization that's traditionally just done legal and policy work and media, not just, that's really important. But this was new for them to do engagement. Engagement is really driving the innovation that's out there. And if you haven't really embraced people power, you're leaving a lot of leverage on the table. We're all trying to do too much with too few people. By the way, I'm going to get into practical things in a minute. This is just my little, try to keep you awake, kind of bigger picture piece. And Rob really talked about this, but I've really come to understand that engagement is not just a buzzword, it's actually about amplifying our power and getting more done. And actually, one way of fixing this broken model that we all work in, where there's too much to do and not enough of us. And then, as outside, so inside, we're quite dysfunctional still. Rob is absolutely accurate. The caterpillar on the computer. For the most part, organizations are still just bolting an internet strategy on top of an organization that still does things the way they have done since the 70s or 80s. And so, that's not how modern organizations are run. That's not how startups are run. That's not the culture that's producing the best outcomes these days. Running with focus and discipline, doing less better. These are some of the things that it's really hard for our nonprofits to do. For really good reasons, we're funded to do all these random things, and we feel the pain of the world, and we feel the pain that this thing is over there and nobody's dealing with it. So yeah, sure, I'll deal with that. But what if that means the 7 things you're dealing with over here are kind of mediocre and half-assed? And we see a lot of that. Our energy is diffused, and we're responding too much to others' vision and others' needs, donors and others. And there's just a lot of inefficiencies more practically with having digital spread out across different organizations, different parts of the organization. And the final kind of underpinning of it all is really leadership, or what I would call a network leadership, which is not your classic leadership for complexity, right? As opposed to leadership for managing complicated systems like air traffic control, which is what a lot of NGOs are optimized for. We're actually trying to adapt in real time, respond to what people are doing, respond to what competitors are happening, respond to Doug Ford getting elected, respond to a very complicated environment, and you don't do that through breaking the world into little pieces and analyzing each piece. You do it through managing complexity, and that's what the change was all about, and that's what part of what we're trying to do here. Just a short little thing on network leadership. What the hell does that mean? There's a really smart woman at Stanford called Jan Y. Skiller that calls the network leadership mindset. It's moving from growth to mission. So kind of from me and what I want to actually what's needed. Moving from control to trust. Moving from yourself to others, and from garnering or controlling resources to actually sharing resources. So that's actually like a legitimate, world. There's huge conferences on network leadership. So, okay, so what I'm actually here to talk to you about is digital teams and some research that we recently did. Everyone's often asking, what should a digital team do? What's the structure? What kind of structure? How many people in the room have a high optimal performing digital team? You feel like things are, and agencies are not allowed to put up your hand. You work in a nonprofit and you feel like, and I'm not trying to ask it in a way that no one can say yes to it. I honestly want to know, if you could put yourself in the top quartile, things are working pretty well, we're pretty functional, we get shit done. How many people are feeling like they're in that? So that's not enough, right? And because digital is kind of everything new, then it's kind of shitty that this whole new thing that's offering so many innovations and possibility is being inadequately operationalized inside our organizations. So, the real answer to what a digital team does, it depends on what you do. If you're doing advocacy, wrong font, by the way, but if you're doing advocacy, you're probably doing more like content sharing and report promotion and online petitions and storytelling about winning campaigns. If you're doing fundraising, your digital team's going to be doing online marketing. You know, that's really, we don't see online marketing and ad spending in a lot of advocacy groups. That usually comes from groups who are more aggressively trying to grow your list and convert it. You're doing storytelling about donors and overall impact. If you're doing service delivery, you know, it's a different kind of digital strategy. If you're doing engagement, which most of us aren't doing, that's a different kind of digital strategy. So it literally has to start with, like, what does my organization do? And then the digital team comes from that. So let me share some research with you that we just recently did with a colleague in the US. So it's the third year we've done this digital teams report. And I really appreciate your presence, by the way. I want to reflect back. It's so nice to see so many faces at a digital looking here. No. So thank you. And later, if you want to look at your computer, this is free at our website, netchange.co/reports. We have a few other reports there. So we talked to 80 people. About 56% were in the US, 25% were Canadian, the rest from Australia and around the world. 40% were small, under 20 staff. And we asked them about their digital teams. And like I said, we've done this for 3 years. So this is just like, I don't know, 10 of the 40 questions we asked. Has anyone here filled it out? Digital team survey 2017? Oh, come on, Miss Vancouver. Eli did. So yeah, some of this data will be from larger groups. I don't know how big you are, but like I said, there's a spectrum in here. But some of the numbers about, you know, how big your digital team is and what staff roles, you'd be like, oh, it'd be nice, you know, to have like 8 people in your digital team. So, you know, you can ignore that. But I want you to look at the bigger pattern. So firstly, no one really knows where to put digital. It still mostly lives in communications, but 60% drop of it being in the communications department than the last time we did this data. So a major drop. We're seeing a lot more digital report to the boss. I'm about to meet with this giant think tank tomorrow that we're working with in Washington, and one of our questions is like, where the hell do we put digital? They're like, okay, good, we want a digital director, we're going to integrate departments, but like, where does it live? We don't know. You know, it's not an easy question on where to put it, particularly if the boss doesn't want another direct report. But so an insight from that is, kind of already said. Sorry, this is going to be a lot of PowerPoint for you, but hopefully you can handle it. I want to give you those actionable insights that Rob refused to give you. The roles have stayed the same. This is not that interesting, but that's if you can see that strategy digital director. Hopefully that's pretty obvious. You want someone to run your digital program as the top job. That was the question here, but it's also interesting to see like data, CRM. These are the most common roles across the teams. Social media is very common, content writer, project manager, designer, and so on down the list. I love asking this question, who would you love to hire most? You know, who tops your wish list? If you could hire one more full-time for your staff team. And social media, not surprisingly, even though, you know, social media broke the internet, and broke our brains, and broke the culture, and broke politics, we're kind of still doing it. Because we kind of still have to. So, but it's also, from a digital team, it's one of the few areas of that we can actually really flex our muscles, right? These other stuff we're supporting you to do fundraising and you to do that, but with social media, it's like it's ours, so it makes sense that it's that common. Online campaigner is interesting because an online campaigner is kind of like a person who does shit, who happens to use the internet to do it, as opposed to like someone who's just in the digital team that just does digital things. And so I like those people because they're thinking about the mission and about the leading edge of the organization and what they're trying to do and follow that with digital rather than, you know, waiting for those people to come up with great digital ideas, which happens more, says people have gotten more digitally savvy. Digital teams continue to grow, so if your team hasn't grown, you know, use this to tell your boss that your team should grow. They're growing at all levels. This is painful. I mean, it was 2 white guys that did this report, but we're still like a super white group, and we stupidly did not ask for male. I can't believe we did this. We had so many people review this survey. We forgot to ask how many were men and how many were women. That would have been a really helpful thing to know. But diversity is not good. And this is mostly US too, so it's really bad because in the US it's a big fucking deal that you haven't diversified your everything yet. You hear it's coming for us, but it's less intense and should be just as urgent, but it's less kind of culturally urgent. Okay, here's the sad news. Engagement. How many years have we been talking about engagement? How many companies in this room have engagement in their name or their tagline? How many years has that been, right? And it's like, seriously, people? Like, we don't have a department that manages supporter engagement? That's what this question was. The most common question was, nope, no one here to do engagement. Nope, do a little bit here, a little bit there. Yeah, no, we share it. Well, we all know how well shared responsibility usually works. It can work really well. I don't think this is necessarily one of those cases. Only 10% of respondents had a department focused on engagement. And again, this is in a world where we're like, losing on a lot of these huge social issues, and losing elections, and losing progress, and losing, this is a way of growing our power, right? And we're not taking advantage of it. So again, I'm speaking more from an advocacy issue campaigning perspective, but that's more my world. Did I just say that one? I did. So I'm going to move on, and I'll show that little insight there. I know these graphs are kind of small, so I apologize for that. But okay, so this is another killer one. Engagement ladders or frameworks or whatever you want to call it. Engagement ding-dongs. I don't care. Are you tracking it? Are you tracking it across silos? Because we all know that we're siloized, and you can't just track Facebook engagement. That's not useful for you as an institution to make actionable insights. And very few groups are doing it. Only 26% are regularly tracking engaged supporters. This includes fundraising, by the way. I mean, we didn't ask fundraising directors, so for those of you who are mainly in that fundraising world, this will be medium relevance for you, some of these questions, because we were asking more of like the digital directors and nonprofits that have fundraising responsibilities, but aren't necessarily the fundraising director. So what that is showing is basically we can't get better at this shit unless we actually know who's doing it, and we can't find the leaders who want to give us more. Those free agents that Rob talked about and others talked about, if we don't know who they are. Actually, I give a great example of someone in this room who I won't out, but there's a certain pipeline happening, sort of, maybe not right now. And this person is an incredible community organizer on the place that I live, and can organize, 300 people out to, which is a lot for our town, downtown in probably longer than I think it takes her, but she seems magic to me. Well, she's one of 30,000 people on someone's email list of people that they said, do you want to do more to stop this pipeline? And I know, because I also know the person who runs that list, they don't know that she's on there, and they don't give her anything special to do, and they don't give her anything special. She doesn't need special recognition, but they should damn well know who she is, and if they have hard shit to do, they should be calling her first. They don't know that, because they're not tracking engagement. Okay, we're still mostly talking at people. That's kind of expected. I'm going to kind of skip through some of these because I want to get to. We're actually going to do something useful for you. Also, you're going to get up and move soon, so maybe you can prepare for that. Because it'll be a moment of discomfort. Comfortable laptop, power supply. Okay. For groups that are doing advocacy, it's kind of cool. We found that most groups are doing a lot more offline actions now. So, my world was all like fake online actions and trying to look like a movement for a long time. And then lo and behold, we realized that it's better to do something on the internet if you did it on the planet. And then you kind of bounce back and forth between internet and planet and internet and planet, and that's actually how things grow. And so people are actually figuring that out. But again, we're not budgeting. This is a question about, is the budget for supporter engagement appropriate to achieve your goals? We're just not budgeting for it. So, we do what we are what we value. It's not our rhetoric and our words, it's actually our actions and our budgets and our time, and we're still not prioritizing that. And that's sad. And finally, structure. So, hybrid, centralized, independent, intentional independent was a new category we came up with this year. Does any of these names mean anything to you? Have you done a good job memifying that in the last few years? So a hybrid, centralized digital team is your classic, hire somebody smart to run everything digital, and they'll run it like a silo, and it lives in comms or fundraising, and everything digital goes to that person, and then you can go and bang on their desk if they screw it up. The problem with that model, do I have to really say it? We actually proved this year that it's not at all correlated with a high performance organization. It's brittle, it's slow, it has trouble adapting, it gets overwhelmed. There's just too much to do. When I started on the internet agency, we did everything. Full service shop. We'll build the CMS, we'll do strategy, we'll do your content, information architecture. There wasn't social media, but we did everything. And very few agencies can effectively do all of the internet really well. You specialize. Online marketing is its own thing, and you don't just add it on the side of your skill set. It's a discipline, and you can become an expert at it. So the hybrid model is actually much more dynamic. It's where a smaller digital team has a core focus on strategic priorities and focuses a lot of its time on training and supporting and empowering others. It's very generous with its insights. It's very helpful to others. People want to call you. They're not scared to call you because you're grumpy. You're actually a creative partner in solutions. And then intentional independent is when maybe there's a whole new, this organization in this big think tank has this whole rapid response department with 40 staff doing journalism, and that's very different than the 300 policy people doing thinky things and working with the media. So they're going to have intentionally independent digital departments that are friends and that talk and that share strategy and tools, but they're not trying to do all that within one group. So that's my little intro. Centralized teams are still, hybrid is actually on track with centralized teams. So if that makes sense to you, they're kind of neck and neck. But again, we found this year that the high performance teams, this is the opposite way of saying this here, are the ones that are more correlated with the hybrid models and or the intentionally independent model. Does that make sense? Centralized does not equal high performance. Might not be true for you, but it's true for most of these people. And it's true in my own experience. And the last couple of slides here, this one sucks. Have you guys been through restructuring in the last little while? I was kind of shocked by this. 3/4 of teams have been restructured recently. And a third of them more than once in the last 3 years. And yet only 22% say that things are going well. Did I get that right? I hope I got that right. So it's a lot of restructuring. In my experience, and I'm not trying to make a pitch for my consulting, but a thoughtful multi-month process that listens in a networked way to all the frontline, not just executive bubble stakeholders, but actually the people doing the work and the people innovating on the front lines. What do you need? What are you missing? What's working? What's not working? Let's be honest. Let's be truthful. Let's not talk about personalities. Let's talk about functional needs. And then you spend a few months on that in an open process that isn't predetermined what the outcome will be. It's not easy to do. Because digital is everything and your organization is different things and your organization is always changing, it's not okay to just do back of the napkin, Bob and Bill, and you take Jane, and, I don't want to give up Bill, okay, you keep Bill over there, and it doesn't work. It doesn't actually help. I kind of geek out about this. Okay, good news. I'll end with some good news. We restructured our teams a lot. Sorry, that was the last slide. Let me be the man of the present, the man of the past. Digital continues to be useful to organizations. Does that surprise you? The ones that are doing the best, which is what that says, are ones where we're leading or at least involved with new decisions. So we asked the question, sorry, I kind of mangled that, but do you drive new decisions on innovation campaigns? Are you involved with them? Are you kind of updated on them, or are they just kind of send you the memo and say, build the damn thing? I used to be in this camp for a long time, for the first 10, 15 years of my life, of my career. But the teams that are performing the best, again, take this to your boss, are the ones who are driving and are at least involved very directly with new initiatives. You don't just get the memo halfway along. And if you're not doing that, it's a problem both with your boss and with you. Because you need to be the kind of person they want to involve in those things. Which means you need to skill up on communications and management and listening and these kind of softer skills. And your bosses need to get the program. Because digital is still not represented at the top of most organizations. And so they're going to continue to miss big opportunities. What we found is another really strong correlation. The ones that do the best have digital represented on the senior management team. That was what this question was. And in the high performance groups, 75% had digital represented on the senior management team. So the groups that are doing the best have digital. And it doesn't have to be the digital director, but your boss has to also get digital. We also asked, does your boss get it? Get it? And our, digital's hard. And I mean, the ones of you here in the room are lucky, but most organizations are still not investing in professional development and leadership. And in a changing world with this network leadership and this high degree of complexity, that's just not going to cut it. So only 37% of respondents had access to coaching or leadership development. So again, if you want someone to turn into a senior executive and drive innovation, and that's really what I hope a lot of you want to do with your lives or are already doing. That's actually what should keep you energized and alive in this field, is to be delivering change while you're delivering, trains on time. Because if we're driving trains to nowhere or to dead towns, that's not really serving our mission anymore. We actually also have to be looking at what's coming next. So the summary of what we found, just to drive it all home, is when digital leads, we are more successful. That doesn't mean you should be like Donald Trump, your organization, and just try to run it. But it means you need to have influence in the organization, and that's actually going to be better for it. Engagement is really not happening like it needs to for organizations that are struggling to build power or to regrow a base that's not. I didn't get into. I have a whole other deck we give around the world about why the world is broken and why nonprofits are not well adapted to this current way that information travels and the way people consume stories and the way people get engaged with causes. Like that's it for a different day, but engagement really is the key. Story and engagement really is the key. To that, distributed digital skills is going to lead you to a better program, so don't be control freak like your boss trained you to be. You need to let it go and let other people experiment and break things, and learn, and that's how your organization gets better. And then, I encourage a humble approach to structure. It's not easy to restructure digital. You're a stakeholder in that. You're not necessarily the one to drive it, but because we also lack our own perspective. But it really is tough. So, what should we do about it all? Great. We're going to get all interactivo, right? Yeah, you got some signs for me? All right. So remember I told you about that uncomfortable thing? Don't leave! Don't leave! I will call your name out if you leave. Oh my god, my fonts are terrible in this page. Okay, so we're gonna I want you to pick. So I just gave you a whole bunch of data. Who cares? What does it mean for you? Which of these 4 areas, we're going to have 4 corners of the room, and I want you to work in groups of 3 or 4, and don't spend 10 minutes trying to figure out your group of 3 or 4. It's probably better, it's not people you came with. Come on, let's break out a little bit. You're kind of crusty on your own. Let's try to learn new things. And I want you to focus on, well, I'll show you the 4, and then I will tell you where they are. So the first one is about making engagement real and grow your people power. And it's over there. Oh, look at that. There's a little number 1. Using my proper font. Nice. The second one is optimum team structure in the back corner. So making your structure better or suck less. And that can be either your own world or the worlds that you interface with. So these are little groups where you're going to talk yourselves about I'll tell you more in a second. So number 3.
What was your font, Jason?
This is awesome font. It's such a good font. I wish you guys could see it. Do you want to run up here and fix it for me? That one is called Story and Theory of Change. That's all you need to know about that one. So if you have a boring story, so theory of change, people have to believe that the shit you're doing is going to lead to the change you promise. And you can't just tell them the same old platitudes you've been telling them for 40 years. They don't buy that anymore because they don't trust institutions. So what is your real live story that really connects with people in the heart, and how you get change shit done? And then finally, support to be a network leader. So what even is that? What resources are available? How do I actually get support or create connections for that? So again, it's making engagement real up here, team structure, nerdo out there on teams. And story and theory change back there, and a network leader over here. And so the structure of this is, we have 15 minutes? Yeah. So it's a decent amount of time. If you all talk the whole time, you won't really get anywhere. I know what I was going to say. I'm sorry, I totally screwed this up. Before you go, I want you to spend 1 minute thinking about what you're going to do and what you really want to talk about most. So what do you want to get out of this next 15 minutes? That's a real question for you. You can look down now. What do you most want to focus on, and what do you want to get? What would matter most to you about this conversation you're about to have with 4 random people? I promise you it'll be useful.